analysis of the potential impact of Trump's tenure on logistics and international transportation based on publications by global media. It is very likely that Trump will change energy policy towards oil production. Experts are talking about a reduction to $40 per barrel. This will give a significant boost to the domestic freight market. In addition, it will reduce inflationary pressure, which will lead to a faster fall in the interest rate, which can stimulate consumer demand. This will help not only domestic production, but also absorb imports from abroad, positive for shipping, air transportation, and international freight, as well as for domestic freight, rail transport, intermodal transport, parcels, warehousing. Although there may be a conflict with Trump's plans to increase tariffs. One of Trump's main statements in the manifesto was the introduction of high tariffs on imports from abroad, especially from China. Just to remind that in his first term, Trump implemented a custom duty for China goods import up via 20%, effectively starting a trade war with China. And the Biden administration has not waived it. Let's wonder what the new duty level can be. This has already led to the relocation of production and warehousing by Chinese manufacturers to Mexico and the United States, and this process will probably carry on. Although Tradeline Mexico, USA, can also be targeted and attacked if Trump considers that Chinese manufacturers are undermining the USMCA trade agreement. Moreover, please don't forget that Mexico-USA trade line is a border regions and the issue of the wall is still acute, which may also create border crossings problem for road freight traffic. Despite the deflationary decline of decreasing oil rates, the measures should lead to higher prices for consumers and producers. As for European Union, EU doesn't have immunity from these trade changes. Remember that relations during Trump's last presidency were very tense. If Europe will respond with own trade actions, it will impact transatlantic trade, but will also strongly support and protect European manufacturing and increase local demand for logistics. Negative for shipping, air freight, international freight, the attitude towards domestic freight and logistics is unclear, can be negative. Positive for domestic USA warehousing and domestic EU logistic. The U.S. automotive logistics industry will particularly benefit given that the transition to electric vehicles in the U.S. is likely to be delayed. Today, ICE, internal combustion engine, production requires much more logistics than electric ones, EV. This raises the question of whether the EU can hold the line on its EV targets, especially given that the European industry is not in the best shape. And the EU, through protective duties, does not allow Chinese electric vehicles into its market, since the production of similar electric vehicles by European manufacturers may prove uncompetitive. There may therefore be indirect benefits for European automotive logistics companies as well. Positive for domestic trucking, rail, intermodal, parcels, warehousing. On taxation, this is one of Trump's major announced policies to reduce or eliminate many types of taxes. These include a corporate tax on domestic production, including incentives for machinery, equipment, and development. The goal will be to create domestic growth and jobs. Many companies are looking forward to less regulation after Trump promised that for every new regulation, he would eliminate 10 existing ones. But Trump's plans go much further. Elon Musk could head an efficiency commission, and entire government departments could face cuts. The goal is to reduce government spending and lower business costs, which would be good for inflation and a huge boost to the domestic economy. Good for domestic trucking, rail, intermodal, packages, warehousing. Although many foreign governments and intergovernmental organizations see climate change policy as a priority, we may say that Trump does not share this view. It is inconceivable that significant progress will be made on global agreements to reduce carbon emissions without U.S. support, potentially stalling the International Maritime Organization's discussions on a carbon tax. Remember that Trump withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement in 2017. The elimination of green energy subsidies in the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, is also likely. Trump's energy policies will make the transition from diesel vehicles less achievable by lowering the cost of oil. This means lower costs for shipping lines and airlines. Positive for domestic trucking, negative for intermodal and U.S. rail. In his victory speech, Trump vowed to end wars, not start them. What that means for Ukraine and the Middle East is unclear. Some decision will undoubtedly impact oil and gas prices, pushing down global energy prices. Trump's doubts about NATO could lead to increased defense spending in Europe, which supports logistics tied to defense manufacturers based in the region. The big winners in Trump's election will be U.S. trucking and other domestic logistics operators. The likely losers will be international trucking, air freight, and freight forwarders, though it should be noted that if the U.S. experiences strong economic growth, that will drive growth. Expect a surge in imports to avoid the added costs before tariffs are imposed, which will push up shipping rates, at least in the short term. It is also not yet clear to what extent the additional costs arising from tariffs will offset many of the deflationary effects of tax cuts and regulation.